For us here at the church. And before I share with you what's about to happen, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for last week. Julie and I had a chance to take some vacation, and we went down and moved Michaela into her dorm, and then get our tears out on the way home. So it was really good to have a chance to do that. She's in Johnson City, Tennessee. I'll tell you, somebody asked me, what was the hardest thing about the whole thing? And was it like when you left town and she didn't come with you? I said, no. It was when she called yesterday and she said, Dad, I learned more in my first hour of Old Testament class yesterday than I've ever learned in church. Like, were you not paying attention? You know what I mean? That was tough. Anyway, thanks for the chance to go down and move her. And she's doing well. And Ian will be leaving this week, so lots of fun ahead as the nest empties out. But I'm really glad you're here today. This is going to be an exciting day for you. I don't know if you remember the series Flat Jesus. I told one of the stories where Jesus simply started by saying, I'm telling you this story so that you will pray and never give up. But after that message, I had somebody come up to me and say, hey, that's my story. And I want to tell it to the church. And I was like, oh, well, that's awesome. And then as she began to tell me her story, I'm like, you should tell that to the church. You need to tell this story. And so I kind of put her on the schedule for September, October, somewhere down the road there. And she's like, no, I need to tell that story to the church now. So I don't know if it's because you maybe need to hear this story about what it means to pray and never give up. But today you get to hear an incredible story from Dacia Rickenbach. And I'm just going to let her come up. But before you come up, I just want to take a minute and pray for you and pray for her as we listen to her story. Lord, you're not only the storyteller, you're the story maker. And there's not a moment of our life that goes unnoticed by you. And you have a purpose and a plan for us that is so great and good. God, I just pray that on this day, while Dacia tells her story, that each and every one of us here in the room, even though her story is not our story, her story is your story. This is a story about what you've done in her life. And God, I pray that somehow in this moment you would change the trajectory for many of our stories. Change the direction because we listened to you and we heard you. And we heard of your goodness. And we heard of your power. And we got a glimpse of your glory this morning. God, I pray that nothing would get in the way of Dacia as she tries to speak today. But Father, she would speak your word, that your spirit would inspire her and your word would empower. Your word would inspire her and your spirit would empower her to speak truth into our lives, that we might be forever changed by the gospel. God, help us not to be distracted, but just attentive to what you can do in a person's life. We pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Would you welcome Dacia to the stage today?
Good morning. So I am Dacia Rickenbach. A little bit about myself. I've been married for 11 years now. My husband David is in the Navy, and so I've been coast to coast. And we are here now because he works at Cooper. And you're going to hear a lot more to come. So the verse I chose for this morning is Psalm 37, 4 through 5. Delight thyself also in the Lord, and he shall give thee the desires of thine heart. Commit thy way unto the Lord, trust also in him, and he shall bring it to pass. The beginning of my story was written August 25th, 2016, and this is important for later. The two people I knew would never falter from their God did. This shakes me to the core. My, so to speak, idols, of those I find in closest worship to the one I center my life around. Therein lies the problem, looking to another human for a likeness of God. No one can live up to such expectations. Only Christ can be our true example. Sin is what separates us from God, and none of us are blameless, free of sin. One of my friends went on a year-long mission trip where he saw heartache and despair in the homeless of such a large city. He came to believe that a loving God wouldn't allow such suffering to happen, and especially on such a monumental scale, or with such stories of innocence as he was told. The second person found out their spouse had been cheating on them for years, and it was enough for them to believe God had turned his back on them. Their exact words included a vulgarity, and then God. So enough with your everyday lives, living as though normality is the new in. Enough with the role play of housewife, PTO meetings, power plant jobs, raising the kids, getting the groceries, volunteering to coach, referee, and Sunday school teach. Enough hiding behind what society deems worthy. No, none of these in and of themselves are bad, but let us show some passion. If we claim to serve the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the same God who sent his only begotten Son to die on the cross for our sins, the same God we come to worship every Sunday, if that is our God, then show some passion, people. Don't be afraid to express your love for Jesus. I know we live in a world where we are beginning to, as Christians, slowly disappear and become the minority, because we are not as accepting or tolerant or level-headed. But don't lose hope. I want to tell you my story. And for every secular being out there who hasn't decided that Jesus is Lord, or who has decided that he is not Lord, there are people like me, who people like them may believe that there is no reason I should continue to stand firm on the solid rock of salvation. Because people like them believe that people like me have been passed by. And if that is true, then why still believe? I'm about to tell you exactly why. More than 50% of the people listening to this have experienced divorce, either firsthand or as a child. My ugly begin there. My ugly begin was the worst divorce in the history of divorce. I'll spare you the details. Then there's a period of life I won't even discuss, not even with my closest friends. But if you can think of something terrible, you probably can be a similar story. Then we come to the present, the near past, the recent. The part where any of my non-believing friends would have repeatedly asked me why I still believe. Why I won't just give up hope. Why I won't just give up Jesus. 2 years ago, we decided to try for baby number 4. We had tried for 7 months when I finally conceived. I carried that baby for 12 full weeks before the bleeding began. Chalking it up to just starting over and they just happened, we tried again and I became pregnant. I carried this baby to 12 weeks and repeated the first experience all over again. We tried again. Mind you, we are trying all the while in the deepest, sincerest prayer to God, crying out to him with our whole beings, as the Bible says, to come to him with your full requests, blameless, meaning pray without ceasing, coming clean with a heart where you confess all your sins and lay everything down at the foot of the cross, where you do everything in your power to live a sinless life and to confess and to forgive and to ask and seek and knock. Sincere, detailed prayer. We became pregnant. This time, 8 weeks was all this baby held on for. And again, gone. 3 in a row. I'll spare you all the medical details, but I will say that this one was clearly the medical field's fault and 100% evident on paper. Just as we were starting over with a new doctor and were given the green light and the promise of a healthy child, the phone call came. My husband has never, in 10 years of marriage, asked me to sit down for a conversation, but he asked me to sit down. He told me he has been activated for deployment. He would be gone for at least 12 months. He would be leaving in less than 2 months. The reality did not hit for a while. I lived in a fantasy land thinking the phone call would be retracted and the paperwork wouldn't be filled and this was just a mistake. But this is my life. The mistakes always become real and the reality becomes, at times, a mistake. No one gets this. No one wants to get this because if they try to understand, they don't know what to do and how to handle it, so they walk away. I don't blame them. I feel the same way. Everyone thinks I'm just functioning as a normal mom in a normal time with a short little absence to come back from. But that's 3 babies, 2 years of trying, and 1 full year ahead of not being able to try. I've heard it all. People aren't afraid to give their opinions. But you have 3 beautiful boys. But some people can't have any babies. But you can try again later. And my favorite, but maybe this is God's plan and what's best for you since your husband will be gone and you'll be alone with 3 children to handle. And on the list goes. 4 lost babies total. 3 of these losses in a row. How does one explain? Is God punishing me? No. Because there's nothing I've solidly done after the 3 beautiful babies I have to endure such heartache of suffering as a punishment now. But guess what? I don't know why, and it doesn't matter why, according to my faith in Jesus. Just look at Job. Yes, Satan specifically sought him out to destroy his credibility with God. Is Satan working on me? Maybe. Is he winning? No, absolutely not. Why not? Because you don't have to get the answer you want. You don't have to get an answer at all, but God still listens. He loves his children. There is too much evil in this world to turn your back on God. Even if you don't think you ever get an answer, there's too much at stake. There's a whole realm of the unseen that is just waiting for those who are faithful and are called according to his teaching. Just because someone else messes up, my person with the divorce, doesn't mean God is punishing you or turning his back on you. It's all about the mountain high. You know, the one you get when you go to church camp, or you have an unusually wonderful worship service, or a prayer time where you feel chills, or a Bible study where everyone suddenly gathers around you to pray, even though you didn't ask or expect, or that stranger that does something nice for you without even realizing how badly you needed it. You're on the mountain. You're up high and you're in your element of you and God, and you feel like not a care in the world could crush you. You are soaring above all else, and you feel the euphoria run through your veins. You are feeling you're closest to God than you've ever been. But come on, people. How many of us live at the top of the mountain daily? It takes a lot of time or a lot of work or an unexpected helicopter ride to the top. We live at the bottom of the mountain, where everyone else lives, where there's no one-on-one connection, where the rivers rage and the valleys are thick, where the animals eat each other and after a good chase, and the houses are too close together. We don't live at the top of the mountain, we live at the bottom. But don't forget, the air is thicker at the bottom. It is easier to breathe. We can see it, we cannot see it, but we feel the comfort of it if we just continue to look for it. We run into a person who just happens to know exactly when to hug us, or call us, or text us, or bring us a meal, or mow our lawn, or shake our hand, or just to simply acknowledge us. That is God, my friends. Don't ever forget the greatest tool God can use to reach us is each other. And that's why you can't lose faith. Because someone is always looking and watching and seeing what you do. Have passion. Show passion. Live passionately. Even if it's vacuuming materials for the 15th time, or walking the halls of the new plant doing the same thing every day, or serving the same meal every day, or going to class, to the store, riding in the car. I don't know if anyone can quite pinpoint an exact reason to not lose faith, but take a breath. The air is thick and plentiful at the bottom of the mountain, and even though we all have to share it, there's always enough to go around. We don't find joy because of our circumstances. We find joy in the midst of them. If you're looking for joy to fill you up in the secular world, you will always be disappointed. It won't last. But if you can find joy through Christ in the midst of your trials, you have built a solid foundation of truth to stand upon. People will always let you down. Even God won't give you all the answers you want. Sometimes he may not answer you at all. But look beyond your circumstances. Find someone you can bless instead of looking for your own blessings. Faith. Faith is huge. Faith without works. Don't give up. Life is too short to give in to what is fleeting, or be also defeated by what is fleeting. There is a heavenly realm that most people seem to forget about. Eternity is real. Eternity is forever. Live your life today as you would want your eternity to answer to you too. Don't give up, even when your answer is no. Even when your answer is seemingly nothing at all. Because time is not our time and our thoughts are not God's thoughts. Be patient and wait upon the Lord. There is strength in faith. There is strength in seeking out joy, even in the midst of our trials. If I can hang on to the hope of salvation through Jesus Christ, if I still believe in the midst of my suffering, so can you. No trial is too great to not be overcome by Christ. His blood has been shed so you can rest in his word. I kept a journal throughout the appointment, and I will be sharing several unedited entries for you. Here's the first one. Journal entry, August 18th, 2016. I just returned from dropping Matthew off at his first day of kindergarten. I wasn't emotional all morning until I had to actually walk away from him while inside the building, and I gave him a kiss and I told him I loved him, and then I broke down. I tried not to. There were a lot of staff and a few parents around, but it was hard. And then I gathered my little Gus and Elijah, and Gus was about to cry too. Then to make matters worse, I learned I had missed an open house the night before, which I had no idea about. I told Gus just now that I feel sad. His wisdom is beyond his years. He said, "Why are you sad?" I said, "Because Daddy's gone and Matthew went to school for the first time ever." He said, There, Mom, stop feeling sad," while patting my knee. He continued, "Maybe I can shrink back to the way I was. Don't worry, Mom, you'll have more kids." So sweet. Fast forward to September 14th, 2016. I began to dig deep into my faith and really explore where my heart is and if my heart is in line with God's plans for me. Dave is deployed. I am not pregnant. Not only am I not pregnant, but I lost 3 babies in a row. God blessed Hannah with a child and then 5 more. In 1 Samuel 1, 26 through 28 it reads, "And she, Hannah, said to him, 'Pardon me, my Lord. As surely as you live, I am the woman who stood here beside you praying to the Lord. I prayed for this child, and the Lord has granted me what I asked of him. So now I will give him to the Lord. For his whole life he will be given over to the Lord.' And he worshipped the Lord there." Hannah was desperate, and she made a deal with God. She gave her son to God. As the popular preacher Tony Evans said, when she mixed her prayers with her generous giving, God gave her a miracle within her crisis. What have you given to God of value because you are desperate? This began my deeper thinking. My prayers were there. My faith was there. Were my actions there? In Ruth chapter 4, Ruth decided Boaz was worth waiting for. "Where you go, I'll go," she said. Ruth married Boaz and conceived when she was unable to before. If you don't know the story, it went from Boaz to Obed to Jesse to David to Joseph, who married Mary and who bore Jesus. Ruth's blessing became the direct lineage to Jesus Christ. Quoting Tony Evans, he states, "When you are desperate, mix giving with your praying, and when it's with a sincere heart, it gets God's attention. When you are in a crisis and you are desperate for God, give God the thing you want." God can do more than you ever dreamt. Wow, what a stunning concept. Give God the thing you want Him to give to you. Precious, valuable. So here I am, September, thinking about this message and these Bible stories and wondering how can I follow through with this. I don't agree with quote-unquote making a deal with God, but I do believe we need to show we are desperate. Back in biblical times, Hannah literally gave her child back to God as he went to work in the temple. We can't really drop our kids off at the front of the church step and consider it taken care of. I dedicate my babies to God early on after they are born, and I make a vow before God to raise them in a Christ-like environment. If I want God to show me He is faithful, then what can I give Him in return? He wants me to show Him that I am faithful. He wants me to show Him that I am faithful, and He wants to use me for His greater purpose. Lord, use me. Lord, make me an example of complete and pure faith. What do I really want so desperately right now? Another baby. What do you want, Lord? You want to use me to reach others for you. It is always about sacrifice. During this time, I was reading the Old Testament, and I was in Leviticus and Numbers. I was bored, to be honest. But then it dawns on me. The bigger picture in Leviticus and Numbers is about sacrifice to God. Leviticus and Numbers talk in great detail of sacrifice. And I finally reached a conclusion. What can I sacrifice to God to plead my requests? 2 days later, journal entry, September 16th, 2016. Aha! I reached my aha moment. Be the miracle. Don't just ask for a miracle, be the miracle. Faith without works. I've had the faith, it's time to work. Dr. David Gibbs taught me to not only pray without ceasing, but to come before God blameless and forgiven before asking your requests. Pray specifically, detailed, fervently. Dr. Tony Evans taught me to not only pray, but what will I offer God in exchange? How desperate am I? How desperate are you? I will ask God for my miracles, and in return, I will share my story of faith with everyone I possibly can. God, use me to be an example of unwavering faith, fervent prayer, and willingness to be a vessel for you. Use me, Lord, to change the lives of others for your glory and your kingdom. Grant me my prayer, dear Lord. Amen. In journal entry. I spoke of praying fervently, referencing James 5:16. The effectual, fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much. On September 26th, I did something I did not think would be possible during the 13-month deployment. I boarded a plane to Jaffa, Bahrain, 8,000 miles from home. I traveled to Paris alone and waited fearfully in the airport, praying for safety to the next plane. I touched down in a combat zone in 100-plus degree weather, surrounded by turbans, Muslims, and not another white person in sight. This is just for description purposes, not that I care. Unknowingly to me, I began a journey I will never forget. I was ready to visit my husband and to touch him to make sure he was in one piece and he was safe. I was looking forward to the next 16 or so days with just the two of us. I did my praying and my thinking and my faith building, and I concluded that God is in complete control of the entire situation. I flew out to simply be with my husband and enjoy our married life. I let go of all control. I stopped taking all the medications and fertility drugs that I was taking before he was deployed. I left them all at home. This was a time to just be thankful my husband is safe and I get to spend time with him. God's will be done. I let it all go. Journal entry, October 1st, 2016. So I'm here visiting Dave about day 5 now, and I'm still in culture shock. There are many neat buildings to see and things to buy, but everything is still so unfamiliar and a bit uncomfortable and scary even. Dave has been a gentleman to me. In fact, this will go down definitely as one of the finest showcases of kindness and husbandry he's been to me in our 10 years of marriage. He has cooked and cleaned up meals for me without a hint of complaint nor request for help. He has showered me with gifts, a card, spending money, surprises, and a vacation. I sure do miss him being home with us. For months it has been hard to believe he's actually gone, and now that I am here, it is hard to believe he is here still. I have been haggled, harassed, possibly attempted to be kidnapped. No, I'm not kidding. I was followed while on foot by a man in a pickup truck, telling me to get in for a good 5 full minutes while escaping down an alley, only to find he had turned and circled back. I have been cheated, duped, stared at, scared, uncomfortable, exhausted, embarrassed, and in pain. But the experience has been eye-opening, surprising, unique, and wonderful. Powerful even, as the culture is truly worlds apart from ours. I feel conflicted and even bad to think that as badly as I wanted to see Dave, I am so happy to be with him. But now that I'm here, part of me really misses home, and the boys, of course. But mostly I was missing the familiar and the comfortable. This surprises me because I see myself as adventurous and open, but now that I'm here, I really don't think I am. In fact, of the 435 restaurants that deliver right to your door, I ordered a cheeseburger and fries tonight. I'm so grateful God has blessed us, and I pray He will keep us safe and bless us to multiply our family, especially during this time of reuniting. Amen. I am so excited to bring Dave home come December for a visit, another unknown blessing not previously possible. And I pray to be sick as a dog from a pregnancy. End journal entry. New journal entry, October 10th, 2016. Been too busy enjoying my time with Dave to write. Absolutely amazing time. He had the wow factor, and he definitely treated me like a princess. He kept me safe, spoiled me, surprised me, gave me gifts, made wonderful meals, many dates, just more than I could have ever imagined. A pregnancy out of this trip would be icing on the cake, and before I came here, I probably would have said a pregnancy is the cake and the rest is icing. But my amazing husband delivered. He stunned me. I'm so blessed and thankful, Lord, that you have given me such a wonderful man and so many wonderful blessings. Bahrain was very scary to me my first week. There are many buildings to look at, construction, dirt, dust, strange and different people, trashy streets and wonderful restaurants, culture shock, trinkets, and everything in between. Then we flew to Dubai and stayed at the beautiful resort with 3 tile-bottom pools along the ocean. The Arabian Gulf is by far the warmest, nicest water I have ever swam in. I'm not kidding when I say near the shore the water was hot, and further out it was very warm, like a bathtub. In fact, after I swam to the buoys and back, I was very hot. Absolutely amazing. We swam in the warm pools, and we had a full day in the middle of Dubai at the world's largest mall and the world's tallest building, the Burj Khalifa. We went to the 125th floor of 160 floors in the world's fastest elevator. We watched the spectacular world's largest fountain show from up high and right up next to it on the ground. We also went on a desert safari where we four-wheeled through the sand in a Jeep-like vehicle. Then the 1.5-hour drive took us past the royal family estates, the world's most expensive hotel at $4,000 a night. I sat and rode a camel, I surfed sand dunes, and watched a belly dance show while eating an authentic barbecue meal outdoors under the stars on cushions. It's going to be very hard to leave Dave tomorrow. I'll miss him terribly. I feel back to normal and connected with him again, but it would be great to get back to my little guys in normal, comfortable life. I only wish he could come with. I pray our reuniting will become a walking, talking story to tell someday. Amen. End journal entry. Now here's the kicker. I wrote the beginning of this sermon back in August before I even knew I'd have the opportunity to visit Dave. My aha moment came just weeks before I stepped on an airplane to cross the ocean and time zones to reunite with my husband. I was able to leave all the baggage of worry and wonder and what-ifs and expectations behind. I stepped on that plane feeling light and ready for whatever was about to happen. I left all control behind. But I packed my hope, I packed my faith, and I packed my prayer. And I packed my vow to tell the world my story. And the night before I stepped back onto the plane to come back home, God packed a miracle blessing in my womb so that I would come home with a story to tell. So here I am standing before you today. You heard the terrible and the glorious. I have been incredibly blessed beyond measure, and I truly believe I had to endure the bad before being gifted the good. There are awful things in life, and losing babies is one of them. It doesn't make sense, but I know there are reasons, and I know God has a plan, and I know God is still a loving and good God. I didn't give up on him. Neither should you. I didn't back down. Neither should you. I didn't lessen my request. Neither should you. But are you all in? Are you completely, 100% dedicated to giving back to God as much as you are asking? Do you believe 100%, or are you flipping a coin and hope he gives you a heads up? Are you clear in your sin, and have you sought out forgiveness to come fully before him blameless? Unwavering faith, undoubting hope. Let go of yourself. Give up the control. My story is a testimony to God's goodness. There is no doubt that my miracle of traveling 8,000 miles on a trip that never should have happened to result in a 4th try pregnancy with a baby that actually thrived and survived and was born after 3 in a row died. Absolutely no doubt that this baby is a direct result of pure faith and prayer. There is no logical or otherwise reasonable explanation. My due date was June 23rd. On June 20th, my children, mom and stepdad and mother-in-law went to Omaha to stay in a hotel for 3 days while we went to numerous doctor's appointments. My husband was due home the following Wednesday, the 28th, with a very small chance that he could arrive on the 23rd. On my due date, the Navy told him that if I have a baby before he leaves Virginia and comes home, then he would be granted 10 extra days of paternity leave. Because we did not expect him to make the birth anyway, we decided to try for the 10 extra days and get this baby out. So on the 20th, I had my membrane stripped. This worked the same day for my last 2 labors, so we just assumed I'd go into labor Wednesday night. And then Wednesday night came, and went, and Thursday came, and Dave and I talked again. I had another membrane strip scheduled for Friday afternoon, so we agreed I'd go ahead and have it done to try to move labor along. By Thursday night, Dave still didn't have an answer to his arrival date, so we were all up in the air on what the plan would be on Friday. Do we stay there? Do we drive home? This entire 3 days spent in Omaha was spent in prayer. I covered the situation in prayer. I prayed fervently. I prayed this baby would come so we would get granted the paternity leave. Then I prayed Dave would make it home Friday. Then I simply just had to pray God's will because He's shown me He knows what is best even if I don't, especially if I don't. And I prayed through my anxiety, and I prayed through my worry, and I prayed through my doubts about all the what ifs. I prayed. Then Friday morning came. I believe it was around 6 a.m. I was up and on the phone with Dave. He had amazing news for me. He had just found out that morning that he would be on a plane that very afternoon and landing in Omaha at 8 p.m. Praise God. I was so excited to have him coming home. I was still disappointed that I didn't go into labor and we didn't gain our leave. After I hung up with him, we went to have breakfast in the hotel. Then the second conversation with Dave came. God blessed us with his arrival. But I serve a God who does more than we can ever ask, think, and imagine. The new news came. Not only would Dave be home that very night, but the Navy granted him 10 days paternity leave anyway, regardless of him having the baby ahead of time. Praise God. Not only did they grant him 10 days paternity leave, but just because of the way things worked out, he actually ended up with an additional 5 extra days. 15 extra days I hadn't previously counted on. Praise God, through whom all blessings flow. Praise God. The 3 days of stress and anticipation for a plan that seemed to have no neat ends to tie together, the 3 days that wouldn't go the way I thought I wanted them to, the end result became God's way, God's plan, fervent prayer, specific prayer, seeking prayer, and God delivered once more. So on Friday afternoon, I was stripped again in the hopes of going into labor, picking Dave up, and heading to the hospital. This, of course, again, was my plan. But God, remember Him? He has a sense of humor and He has a plan. And it isn't my plan. So did I go into labor Friday night? Nope, of course not. We drove Dave home. We spent Saturday and Sunday with no sign of labor, but home as a family. We spent the weekend together with the boys, just being together as a family again. What a wonderful time. We rested, we prepared. Then on Monday morning, we drove to the hospital for an induction. They started the Pitocin. Again, I had plans. I planned an all-natural labor like my last 3 sons, because I've always been told that due to the rods in my back, I cannot have an epidural. I also planned on them stopping the Pitocin once contractions started. These were my plans. But then I was informed that once Pitocin began, I would stay hooked up to the IV for the duration. This did not coincide with my plans. I've been induced before, and I know the contractions are stronger and shorter apart than natural labor. I was not prepared for this. When my doctor came in, he told me I should just allow anesthesia to try an epidural. I just knew it wouldn't work, but my anxiety continued to grow about the pain I was about to endure, and since my plan wasn't going according to my plan, I decided to let them try. With one try, during one very strong contraction, with my eyes squeezed shut so tight that the world turned black to me during my intense prayer session I was having with God, the needle was in. He said it didn't go in as far as it should, and therefore wasn't sure it would work, but we would wait and see. Well, God, your plan exceeded mine. No surprise there, right? The epidural medicine began flowing, and within 10 minutes max, I felt absolutely no contractions, no pressure, no pain, nothing. I felt nothing but blissful relaxation and immense relief. I was having my first pain-free labor ever. The baby was looking great, I was feeling great, and my husband was right there by my side. I was ready to have this baby. More ready, more prepared, and more blessed in the situation than I ever would have imagined for myself. I gave God complete control, and He delivered. I should have known, right? Romans 8:28 told me so. And we know that all things work together for the good of them that love God, to them who are called according for His purpose. Our intention the entire pregnancy was to wait and find out the gender. God has a sense of humor. As a mom of 3 boys, I flew to the land of Arabian princesses, was treated like an absolute princess, and came home with a little princess in my womb, totally unknown to me at the time. The trip itself was a blessing. My husband's safe return home was a blessing. The pregnancy thriving was a blessing. The baby born as a boy would have been a blessing. But God goes beyond what we can hope for, ask for, or imagine. He blessed us with our first little girl. He went all in. God went all in. And I believe the reason for this is because I chose to go all in for Him. And He delivered us. Don't give up. As Psalm 37:5 states, trust also in Him, and He shall bring it to pass. With Jesus, there is always hope. Always.
A powerful testimony about God's faithfulness. And as I said at the beginning, your story may not be Dacia's story, but your God is Dacia's God. God is the same. He doesn't treat all of us the same. I love that she referenced Ruth's story, because some people would say that Ruth's story is just the opposite of Dacia's story, because Ruth would lose her husband and would lose her son. But the truth is, it's the same God. And that God is faithful in different ways to different people. And so I just appreciate hearing that story so much. I was thinking a little bit about Dacia's story while we were traveling, and this week, of course, the eclipse. Anybody, you guys know that it's going to be dark tomorrow, right? Around here, might be some people traveling through, leave a little early to go places, you know, all these things, right? No, that's all news. Well, that's what you get for being humble, Quinn. Just out of the loop. Big day tomorrow, right? And so anyway, I was thinking about how all this fit together, and just realizing that, you know, what Dacia was going through is a personal eclipse. And I think we all go through them. St. John of the Cross called them the dark night of the soul, where we go through these moments where we feel absolutely alone, like there is no light and there is no hope and there can be nothing that takes place. And yet we can do this with faith. You know, tomorrow the moon is going to block the light from the sun completely here. And yet, the sun is 400 times larger than the moon. How can that happen? Well, the sun is 400 times more distant than the moon. And so when the sun is hidden by the moon tomorrow, I just want to I want that to serve as a reminder and something for you to hang on to and never forget. That, you know, the sun is like the glory of God. I mean, it shines on us. It's big. It's powerful. Are there moments where our life circumstances pass between us and the Lord and cast a shadow where we feel like we're walking in the dark? Absolutely. There are just going to be moments like that. And I know that David and Dacia went through moments like that. Sometimes there's seasons like that. And some people feel like their whole life is like that. But I promise you, it's going to pass. Your circumstance is going to pass. And your circumstance, as it passes, is going to be revealing of God's beauty. You know, it's going to be amazing tomorrow. It's not just this one moment of total darkness that's going to be beautiful. It's going to be the moments leading up to it, like when we see just part of the sun, and if you get lucky, you get to see the solar snakes on the ground, if you read about that. Or then you get to this moment where the sun will shine through the mountains on the moon, and we'll see what they call the beads. And then we'll see the diamond ring. And then we'll see darkness. You know, it's this whole series of events that's going to be just beautiful. I think a lot of times that's where our pain is. There are moments where we get glimpses of just how beautiful and powerful God is, and we would never see that if it wasn't for the pain and the struggle. And so just understand that what Dacia is telling you is true. There are times that we go through, we just don't know, you know, if God's going to come through for us. We pray He will. The fervent prayer of a righteous person availeth much. Absolutely true. But sometimes it's really dark before the dawn. And God is going to do some of His best work in those moments. Paul wrote about it this way in 2 Corinthians chapter 4. He said in verse 16, "That is why we never give up. Though our bodies are dying, our spirits are being renewed every day. For our present troubles are small and won't last very long, yet they produce for us a glory that vastly outweighs them and will last forever. So we don't look at the troubles we can see now. Rather, we fix our gaze on the things that cannot be seen. For the things we see now will soon be gone, but the things we cannot see will last forever. I just pray, if nothing else, that today you've been able to take your eyes off the circumstances and the darkness thereof and be able to catch a glimpse of the beautiful, glorious God who answers our prayers. You know, we're in this series on Judges, and one of the things that just has really been pointed out to me as I've been reading through this book and studying and thinking about this message series, and it shows up in Judges chapter 3 when Israel just joins in with the pagans around them, with the Canaanites. And these are people who worship their God by taking a precious little life, like this little one that was just up here, that we totally value, this life that was prayed for and longed for. They would take a life like that and offer it as a sacrifice to their God. They would slaughter children. You know, there was a reason God wanted to punish the Canaanites. He wanted that practice to end. And so the Israelites were to move in and bring an end to all that. And they didn't. They adopted some of their practices and beliefs. And they suffered the consequences of it. That whole cycle that Nate talked about last week and I talked about the week before. This cycle of rebellion and sin and oppression. But then the repentance and remorse, the people cry out in chapter 3, it talks about how the people cried out and God sent them Othniel to deliver them. And then they went through that whole cycle again and God sent them Ehud to deliver them. And you and I, we've been there. We have cried out. Daisha cried out. And it's not just this baby that was sent. God has sent his son to deliver us, to give us hope, to give us this promise of life, to remind us that we will always have him with us. Wherever we go, whatever we're going through, he's willing to be there with us. And he loves and values us like this family values their little princess. So as you leave here today, would you just remember that you are loved and valued, and there's nothing you're going to go through. It's going to be so dark that God's glory can't shine through. Would you stand as we finish this day? If you need somebody to pray with you after the services, I'll be up here. The elders will be available. We're really glad they're here today. I want to encourage you after service today, if you can, make your way to Longs Creek today. Go down and visit some of our senior adults. There's pulled pork sandwiches they're giving away down there and ice cream. It's going to be a great lunch, great time. Ian headed out early today because he gets to go down and play for an hour. So he'll be down there singing as well. So we look forward to seeing you down there. God bless you.
Sing us out. Great promise of God to his children. For you unravel me, the melody, you surround me with song. Deliverance, my enemies, till all my fears are gone. No longer a slave to fear. I Amen. Go with God this week. God bless you.
That's how I do it.
Sorry, I thought I was doing that.
How was your first day? Yeah, that was good. Alright, cool. Hey, Matt. Oh, what was the first day? In blue.
Yeah, that was like how it was.
Yeah? Yeah, they should be there too.
Later, I'm like, wait a minute. My mom.
I thought that was hilarious. I was sitting there thinking though. That's what I was thinking. Oh, Beagle. Technical issues. No, what grade? I'm telling you, but you guys start going to school in 6th grade?
Yeah, well, we should have to school. But now it's just kind of back to like 7th grade.
Oh, so you don't have to worry about it.
No, but she already did with teachers. She loves teachers already. She was twice in the fourth grade.
Yeah.
So downstairs. No, it's up here.
Well, I think did I ever show you?
No, and I'm sorry.
No, I Good job.
See, and why is that blinking at me? I'm having network issues today, and I don't know